Hi.
Hi, everybody. My name is Jushchyshyn. I am Program Director of Immersive Media at Drexel University in Philadelphia, PA. And today, Charbax has graciously invited me to talk a little bit. I figure we'll talk about virtual production, Unreal Engine. Of course, these days everyone is streaming from home, but my home setup's a little different because I'm always inside Unreal Engine. So I have like a nice big space. And so we can talk about how these things are made and how they work. And thanks for having me, Charbax.
You have the coolest Corona setup I've ever seen.
I don't know about that, but it's pretty fun. Yeah. I mean, we've been working with virtual production for quite a long time. It's actually a rather old technology by digital standards, but when things got driven home, we kind of lost access to our main studios where we do a lot of our virtual production work. And it just kind of was an experiment for me to start with the idea of like, okay, well, I have a green screen at home. I have a camera at home. Maybe I can use virtual production at home and just always use it when I'm on Zoom meetings or whatever. And it's been really handy. I mean, especially with all of the distancing that we've had to do with COVID, we've been able to actually, as at an educational institution, academic institution, the end of year and end of different quarters, we usually have big shows to show off the students' work. And a lot of times they would normally be in theaters with audiences, and we haven't been able to do that for the last year. And so we've been able to use virtual production as a means for facilitating those kinds of events digitally.
Muted right here. Yeah, I'm getting some little sound. I'm not sure if it's I was trying to mute myself, some little thing going on. I'm not sure if there's like some kind of loop. I'm not sure how to define it. I saw you speak on the Open Hours show, actually this one right here, where you introduced that you'll have here
yeah, so Alex Lindsay's right office hours. Yeah.
So the office hours is actually awesome, and you've been appearing on that once in a while.
Once in a while, yeah. So Alex Lindsay, there's Alex, runs a daily panelist stream. It is every single day, 7 days a week. It's been running for about a year now, where he brings together panelists from all over the world with a variety of different expertise areas of focus and such. And a lot of Alex's background has been in production, visual effects and motion graphics, virtual production, 360 production, streaming. And so a lot of the folks that he's worked with in the past come in, and the topics of discussion usually center around things like video production, and not just the technologies, but the logistics and the working with clients and strategies for operations. Alex also has a very strong passion for education in general. And so every Saturday is actually carved out as a focus on education. And of course, we gravitate towards talking about how education institutions, teachers, educators can leverage these technologies in their work. Those office hours sessions start every single morning. It's at, I think it's 10 a.m. Eastern and 7 a.m. Pacific time that stream starts each day. And coming up in April on Saturdays, I'll be doing a series on using Unreal Engine and getting started with it for virtual production. So those sessions will be, there's 4 Saturdays in April, so it'll be each of those Saturdays at 1 p.m. Eastern and 10 a.m. Pacific. And so that'll be geared towards beginners. So again, since Saturdays for office hours tend to be geared towards education, hoping that some of the audience will be educators and students that are interested in getting started. Virtual production is a pretty big topic. There's a lot of different versions of it. And one of the primary tools is Unreal Engine, and Unreal Engine is a very big tool, and there's a lot of different places to get started, and sometimes it can just be confusing when you first look at it and not even knowing where to start. So the focus of the Saturday sessions in April is all about how did you get started with it? How do you make your own setup like this? And how do you connect? How do you bring video into it? How do you key out the green screen? How do you build a set using, all kinds of free assets that are available? And so it's all about getting started.
So it's going to be the first one on Saturday. Which April is that?
It'll be the first Saturday in April. Honestly, I don't remember the date off the top of my head, but
every Saturday in April. Is that true?
Yeah. Yes, every Saturday in April.
Awesome. So anybody can join the Zoom calls that they have over there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And learn how to have this awesome setup. Do you want to do a little demo?
I guess I could. Yeah. Is there a way I can share my screen here? I just hit the share screen button, right? So.
You can also demonstrate the output, right, from your camera with all the different things that you can do.
Sure. So, let me know. Is my screen being shared now?
Yeah.
You can see my mixer. Okay, great. I'm going to get rid of the mixer.
It.
So this screen that you're looking at is Unreal Engine. So Unreal Engine is a 3D graphics tool, and we further call it a real-time 3D graphics tool, meaning that everything that's happening happens in real time. We don't have to wait for a render. That's a big distinction with virtual production from traditional CG animation, traditional CG visual effects. Usually those types of renders can take minutes or hours or even days per frame. Whereas with a real-time engine, every frame is being generated in real time. So a lot of the perimeter here is the controls and tools that Unreal Engine uses to add things to the scene. In the middle here is our viewport. And, outside of this virtual scene, I have a real camera, of course, in front of my real desk. And that camera is, sending a video feed into the computer, and Unreal Engine is reading that video feed live. And you can kind of see an icon of it, that video feed's here, and it's my wrinkly green screen behind me. I've gotten criticisms on how wrinkly my green screen is, but there it is. And then that video, you could see here, if I click on this, I'm just coming in and I'm being put on, this two-dimensional plane panel here. And it's situated in a 3D scene behind this desk so that it looks like I'm actually sitting at this desk. I guess the other interesting thing is that I have to my left over here, I guess it's screen right for you, is an iMac, and that is streaming its video over a technology called NDI on my network. And so Unreal Engine is reading the Macintosh screen live. So if I start using that to demonstrate something or, open up a video over there on that screen, then all of that is being updated live in Unreal Engine. So you're just seeing all of that happen as it happens on that Mac. Another thing that I like to do when I'm in these Zoom meetings, my physical screens are to my left and to my right. And when I'm on a call, it looks kind of silly if I look to the screen to my right to look at what's going on and there's nothing there. So I've added these holographic representations of my two actual desktop screens. So I have a genuine computer to my left, a genuine computer to my right. And I'm just streaming the video of their displays into these, just translucent panels. So I can be behind it. Hello. And then when I'm looking at it, then others can see, oh, I'm actually looking at something there. So that's what's going on. The other interesting thing for Unreal Engine is that you can place these different cameras in here. As I click on a camera, you can see, well, this camera sees this, and over here there's another camera that sees this. And these are virtual cameras in a virtual scene, but Unreal Engine has a tool set that basically connects these to a physical video output on the computer. So I have what's called a Blackmagic Decklink board. So it's intended for video production. That's how the video from the camera is getting into the computer. But I can direct video from any of these virtual cameras out that SDI output. So SDI is just kind of like HDMI. It's just a kind of a professional grade video output signal. So right here in Unreal Engine is the connection between these virtual cameras, Cine Camera Actor 1, 2, 3. So here's, I've got Cine Actor 1 selected. Here's Cine Actor 3. And I can switch between those. And so if, you were seeing my camera feed, I could switch to camera 3, and then camera 3 goes out, and then switch back to camera 1. So these virtual cameras actually have physical video outputs. And then how I handle that, the rest of that for streaming like we are now, or for Zoom, is I'm feeding the video outputs from these cameras into just a standard USB video device. In my case, it's an ATEM Mini from Blackmagic Design, but you could use any type of video capture device, USB or otherwise. And then it just looks like a webcam. So effectively what's happening is, this camera right here in Unreal Engine is being treated by my computer as a web camera and used for streaming. So that's kind of an overview.
Nice. I got there's this comment. I bet it takes 3 years of experience just to do this.
I'll share. I mean, I've been at it for a while, but honestly, the office hours lab sessions that we'll be doing in April are designed to basically get people up to speed in 4 weeks or less. There'll be really simple exercises with provided tools. Honestly, once you get over the shock and awe of just how many controls and buttons and windows there are here, it actually makes sense very quickly. I mean, it's not entirely different than Photoshop. It's, I could show you right now, like if I wanted to add something to this scene, let's say I just wanted to add some kind of a wall, I could go into a folder here where like different things called meshes. That's geometry. Let's see here, doors, facades. Let's take a facade here. If I wanted to add this wall to the scene, it's really a drag and drop affair. So I could just drag this out here, and now that wall is in that scene. And if I wanted this wall to look differently, like right now I could look over here and there's two materials. And so there's a material that's wood and there's a material that's silver. And if I wanted to change those, well, then I can just go into a library of materials. Maybe instead of silver, I want these to be glowing squares. So I could go into something that glows and say, all right, yeah, I want to take this glow and I'm just going to replace the aluminum with that. And now they're glowing. And maybe I want to replace the wood with concrete. So I'll select some concrete, drag that on top of the wood. And so that's how quick and easy it is to use. And that's really the value of what virtual production is because you can alter what's in the scene very quickly. I'm just tapping the E key, so now I can rotate. If I wanted, if this was a physical set, this wall would have had to have been built by carpenters, plasterers. It would have been painted. And so there's an entire team that would have needed to build that wall. And then if the director saw the scene like this and said, hey, it's really lopsided, can we build another wall over here? Then this would have to be, you have to bring that entire crew in again to build yet another wall. But in an Unreal Engine with virtual production, if I already have this wall once, I just hold the Alt key and drag, and now I've got another one. And an E key, and I can rotate it into position. And so just like that, now I've got
And you can
copies.
position it behind you also a little bit?
Yeah. So, I mean, if I wanted to, W lets me move this around. So I could bring this in right behind me, and now you can see it in my camera view as well as right behind me there in the scene. The other thing is there are tools that allow you to use nothing more than a standard camera and photograph objects over and over and over again, and then create a 3D model from it. So I'm just going to delete these walls. I don't need these. But just another example is this Tyrannosaurus Rex head is, I'm just going to tap F to kind of focus on that. This is an actual cast of an actual Tyrannosaurus Rex skull. We have this at my university. We have a Academy of Natural Sciences Natural History Museum. And so, I just went there and shot around 100 photos of it. And those photos processed through a tool called Capturing Reality, which is also owned by the same company that makes Unreal Engine. And really, by doing nothing more than taking those photos and running them through a piece of software, now I have a three-dimensional copy of that artifact, and now that's in my scene. And if I wanted to bring that closer to me, I could, right? So I can just bring that up here. In the real world, this would need a cart and a team. It would be really heavy, but there it is next to me now. So, yeah, there's some of the things that you can do with virtual production.
Is Unreal Engine very expensive?
It's actually 100% free. So
that's awesome.
The company that makes Unreal Engine is they built it for themselves as a tool for building video games, right? So Fortnite is an example of a really popular video game that comes from that company. And so originally this was built as a tool for creating video games. And so it's often called a game engine. Obviously, it does quite a lot more than just creating games. But as a result, this doesn't seem to be a primary revenue stream source for the company Epic. So it's available completely for free download. You can go on to the Epic, you could look for unrealengine.com, I think is the website. And on there, you can set up a free account with any email address, and then you can download the tool. And it's cross-platform. Again, the sessions in April are going to work for a Mac as well as for PC, so you can download for either of those platforms. Some of the functionality is definitely best on a PC. So this live video, this ability to capture live video stream it out live, that really works best on a PC.
So it's not going to work on my M1 MacBook?
An M1 MacBook, I believe you can use, you could still use Unreal Engine, but you wouldn't be able to process live video. So you could bring in a video file and do the green screen keying. So if instead of being live video, I had recorded something, if I wanted to create a movie, if I wanted to create a demonstration or an educational piece that I'm going to pre-record, I'm going to edit and post it to YouTube, you could do all of that with virtual production in Unreal Engine on a Mac. Really, the only thing that you genuinely need a PC for is live video input output, and it's really just because the plugins that enable that, the software that really allows all that to happen, have been developed on the Windows platform, and I haven't seen them released yet on the Mac platform. Can you show a little bit
the functional, the plugin? How do you click to make it a live? How do you click to make it your webcam source?
So what's happening here is that right here, this panel called Media Capture is what connects my virtual cameras here, right? So this is listing actor 1, 2, and 3. This is the actor 1 camera. There's a really simple setup. The hardware that I'm using is Blackmagic. And so right here, there's just a little icon. If I double click it here, I configure and I can say, all right, yeah, I'm going out this particular deck link board at this resolution, etc. So this is actually my input. So that's all it is. I just, click these drop downs and then it works. And then here I am. Then the output is going into a ATEM Mini. Unfortunately, I don't have a handy picture of one of those right now, but I guess I could go to the web here and say ATEM Mini. And Blackmagic Design ATEM Mini. Okay, so all an ATEM Mini is a little box. Actually, they have big ones now too that are like really big, right? So there's a whole product line of these that they plug into a computer over USB, and once you do that, then any video source plugged into this just looks like a USB webcam to your computer. So whether you're using Zoom or this Melon app that we're using right now, or Skype or any Teams, it all sees this as if it was a webcam. And now each one of these buttons allows for, in this case, these models have 4 video inputs. And so you could switch between them and do crossfades and things like that. So my personal setup is set up in such a way that the video output plugs into this, and then this USB input appears as a webcam. There is another set of tools that you can do this without that hardware, and that is called Ndi Tools. And this is a free software solution. So Ndi Tools is just a set of video processing tools that basically virtualize video connections. Basically, that any video source using this software can be either recognized as a webcam or created as a network-based, an Ethernet-based or video stream. And so this is actually how I'm bringing my monitors onto the Unreal Engine, is that this NDI screen capture is running both on my Macintosh as well as this PC. And then inside Unreal Engine, I have some NDI inputs set up. Where are they? Right here, NDI video input. And so these right here are basically pointed at those two computers, and that's how those feeds are coming into Unreal Engine. So it can be done with software. It lags a little bit more than the hardware. So I have the hardware, so I'm using that. So it's a little bit faster.
Do you have a beast of a computer to do the Unreal stuff, or do you need a nice GPU? Or?
Kind of yes and no. Back in the day, this was a beast of a computer. This computer is a good 5-6 years old. And it has a NVIDIA GTX era graphics board. So today, the modern graphic boards are the RTX boards, the 30 series RTX boards. So the graphics board I have in there, it's very capable for its age. I think the graphics board's like 3 years old. It's a Quadro 6000, so it definitely has a lot of processors. It has a lot of memory on it, but it is not the latest, greatest RTX technology. It is not the fastest boards today. In fact, I think that if someone were able to buy a $500 RTX 3060 board, they would have every bit as much functionality as I have, probably more, because I can't. There's a technology called ray tracing that actually more authentically handles light and shadows, and that doesn't work on the graphics board that I have. And I'm just using simulations, right? So another thing we could do in Unreal Engine, by the way, is I can change the path of the sun. So let's make it. It's a sunny day out. I'll bring out the sun. So long story short, is really a gaming capable. Like if you were to get a typical game capable computer for home, it could be a laptop, it could be a desktop, maybe $1,500 price range for the whole computer. You'd be able to do everything that I'm doing here. If you already had a decent desktop and you didn't have a good GPU, then the tough thing is inventory these days. You can't find anyone that has a RTX 3060 board in stock. But if you could and you bought that and it's like $400 or $500 to buy one of those boards, you'd be able to do all of this very easily.
And then maybe what's it called? Right now, for some reason, you're not able to get the 1080p in my streaming system here, but you can do this in 1080p quality.
Yeah, absolutely.
Your source could be like high quality, right?
Yeah. So I'm actually outputting in 1080 resolution, and the ATEM Mini is bringing it in as at 1080p. But yes, unfortunately, I guess with this software, it's not recognizing my 1080 feed right now, and so what we're seeing is a 720 feed. But I could output an Ultra HD as well. So if we had
nice.
A full Ultra HD or 4K, I mean, as far as Unreal Engine is concerned, the higher the resolution, you'll need more GPU processing capability, but it's all very doable.
Because I'm not very what's called. Do you use Zoom a lot every day? A lot for all kinds of stuff. I don't use it that much, but in my experience, Zoom is not very, very high quality, right? Or do you connect on that in higher than 720p, or barely?
Same thing. I mean, I can feed. I'm configured to feed 1080p to anything. My experience with Zoom is that they generally throttle the video so that, HD for them is usually 1280 by 720. And, they're just under such a high traffic load these days that, that helps keep their pipes open, right? So I do know that there are enterprise accounts available through Zoom where you can actually do 1080 video with that, but I think that's like, even my university has an enterprise account with Zoom, but the academic accounts don't get that 1080p. But I believe there's a price level at which enterprise Zoom allows for full 1080p.
All right. That's awesome. I want to see more 4K video conferencing going on. And then you all set up, actually, your ATEM can really output a 4K?
The ATEM itself cannot, but the Unreal Engine using the Decklink board can. So the Decklink board that I'm using supports Ultra HD. So the ATEM Mini is HD. Let's see if I go back to ATEM Mini here. So these are all HD devices, but there is another version of this, which is, where's ATEM Live Production? So they have professional grade switchers that do support full Ultra HD. So I have one of these in my studio. It works great. So, if I had this in my home office, I could stream in Ultra HD.
All right, because I'm connected on this Camlink 4K. I don't know what the quality is right now, but I just selected the 1080p on that one. I don't know if that's something that could be considered in your setup. Do you really need to have the switcher or are you just getting one source through the ATEM right now?
The switcher does add a little bit of flexibility because then I can switch my stream to be directly the camera source. The nice thing about the ATEM Mini is it works, independent of any software. So, if it's early in the morning and I have a meeting and I haven't really fired up all of the hamster wheels and Unreal Engine's not running yet, I can still do a meeting with just the ATEM Mini directly from the camera plugged into it. I could also screen share. I could hook up my laptop to it really quick and share a screen from there. So that's why I keep one of those on my desk. It's just really, really handy. And for the work that I generally do and for conferencing, I don't really have a high demand for needing to stream out in Ultra HD. So again, if I were in that situation, I would actually there's a particular Decklink board called a Duo that actually has 4 input outputs, and all of them support Ultra HD. So I could actually have multiple inputs and multiple outputs through that, and that would also allow for that streaming in Ultra HD. So I'd probably go that route.
Because I think it was something like more than a decade ago, maybe 12, 13, 14 years ago, that I saw the first 4K video conferencing systems. I think they were from Cisco or something like that at trade shows, And I was always thinking, yeah, I really want to have that, and I would think that this should be like the Corona time should be the time when everybody has a 4K, or many, I don't know, more than 50% of all TVs in the world are 4K. Maybe there's somebody should do something to just get that done and make it work and have people kind of do stuff in 4K a little bit more. Because I tried to save a Zoom call on my YouTube channel and I could only export 360p. It was crazy. I was like, and I've never gotten so many comments of people asking if this was filmed in 1997. Mm-hmm. It was a little bit funny.
A lot of times, I agree. So a lot of times I will record locally at full resolution and then run, a proper file encoding locally using the, your computer, and then post that result to whatever, whether it's YouTube or internal to my university, we have a video sharing solution, and I'll, export to there so that downloads would be using the full resolution, so that the streaming. So I agree. When I have a recorded Zoom meeting, because I don't have a full 1080p HD account access, the video windows are very small. They're actually standard definition, like 640 by 480 or something like that. And so it's good to be able to have those locally recorded high resolution files.
I kind of think that the reason that there's the so compressed and stuff is that Zoom is so popular right now, and they just want to save money on bandwidth, and they put everybody down on as low as they can to save because it's crazy how many people are using Zoom right now.
Yeah, I mean, you got to strike a balance between saving money and just, keeping the pipeline open, right? So if everyone was streaming Ultra HD, that would be, many times more traffic for the same number of people. So, the infrastructure itself would have to support that. My neighborhood internet access around my house would have to be able to support that on a sustained level from all the houses in the neighborhood in order for that to become particularly widespread.
This is so awesome. Your setup. Do you get on all these calls with the students? So can you explain a bit, what do you do with the Drexel University?
Sure. So I run a program that's called VR and Immersive Media. I had run the animation and visual effects program for about half a dozen years before launching the Immersive Media program. And we're in a department really that focuses on 3D graphics and using computers for creating imagery. And so we have a number of programs. There's a game design program that focuses on game design. There's animation, there's visual effects. And what we recognized as VR started to take hold because of this, it suddenly had really low prices and you could buy a VR headset from Amazon, or that the implementation of immersive media, which is not necessarily constrained by a rectangular screen, is something that's going to be growing and in demand, and not just in the entertainment industry, but also in medicine, healthcare, engineering. There's a variety of industries, automotive, aerospace, are using it as a means of communication, as a means of training and teaching. So we created a program dedicated to that because the challenges are a little bit different than just creating a game or just creating a visual effect. We use a lot of the same tools, and so we built on the strengths of this 20-year our digital media department had been founded back in 1998, back in the 1900s. So we had all this experience in teaching 3D modeling, 3D texturing, lighting. We had experience in working with real-time game engines. We had an infrastructure in place where we have a full, Vicon Vantage motion capture stage. We have a second motion capture stage that's from OptiTrack. And all of these technologies were in place. They had just up till that point been really focused on rectangular format screens. And so the Immersive Media program was formed to kind of open that up to VR, augmented reality. Immersive media could also be on large projection walls. It could be LED immersive domes where, nobody wears a headset. Everyone is in one space and they're completely immersed. Virtual production is kind of a blend of all of those things because I'm physically sitting in a room and I'm a flat video, but my flat video is being put into this immersive, complete space as I sit here. So this isn't a video game. It's kind of like a visual effect, but it's different than using Nuke and shooting green screen and using a set of EXRs and doing a multi-layer composite and then waiting a couple hours for the render. So the Immersive Media program really focuses on leveraging these real-time technologies in immersive formats, and this is what we teach our students. So it's kind of a point of pride for me to share that this environment that I'm in was actually built by a sophomore from our program. So one of the things that my university does, Drexel has something called a co-op program where students are basically told, for 6 months, no classes. If you really want to take a class, you can take a class. But for 6 months, you should focus on a full-time job. Go out into industry, do a full-time job for 6 months, and then come back and take some more classes, and then go do that again. So our students have the option of doing that 3 times over the course of their academic career. And so this sophomore, I actually worked with our engineering college, hired this student, and in a few weeks, he basically had built this. And this is a sophomore student, not a graduate, not an alumni, but just, what he had learned from coming into our program out of high school, having not done much digital before. Within 2 years, he was able to build, an environment like this in Unreal Engine. And so that's kind of like the midpoint of our program. And then going from here, students basically work towards different specializations. Some of them will specialize in animation, character modeling, rigging. Some will go into motion capture, virtual production, compositing. And so that's kind of the overarching structure of our program and what we teach.
Do you have some alumni who are doing some awesome stuff out in the world? Like I saw something about the Mandalorian. Is it an alumni or?
Yeah, I mean, of course, with a program that's been around for 20 years, we have a lot of alumni that are out in industry today that are quite successful. So there are several off the top. I'm not really at liberty to name names, right? But there are several major motion capture stages that for video game companies that our alumni run those stages. And it's great seeing when an alumni gets into a position like that, and then they're hiring, newer alumni. So we've got a few different places in industry at this point where we've got alumni that are on the supervisory level, and they're hiring our graduates as they pop out. Honestly, I came out of the feature film industry, and I had done some motion capture based virtual production back in the early or mid 2000s. But this whole concept of using a game engine was really new to me when I started teaching at Drexel. And it was like 2012, 2013 when I was really first introduced to this, actually using a game engine. And it was a student who introduced that to me. And so this student actually was like a senior, and then he became a graduate student while I was first starting at Drexel. And his graduate thesis was to create a virtual camera system using a iPad and a Sony PlayStation and a PC. And so he built, what is kind of a precursor to what a lot of today's virtual production is, using those consumer products. And he used the Unity game engine. And that was really an eye-opener for me. So one of the most exciting things for me as an instructor is when I get to learn from my students. So, I mean, he is an alumni. I mean, he went on to work at Disney. So he worked with Favreau on Jungle Book and Lion King. He worked on Ready Player One with Spielberg. And now he's an executive in charge of virtual production at a very large major streaming service that pretty much everybody has. So yeah, I mean, we have a lot of very, very successful alumni that take a variety of paths. And for every single student that I could tell a story about like that, we also have students that take different paths into other industries. So we've had students get hired into aerospace, into defense, students that go into interiors and architecture. And it's really exciting to see, because we really try to stay ahead of the technologies when we're teaching them. And so we have students that, because their full-time job is to learn, and our full-time job is to teach them. So they spend 4 or 5 years learning these technologies. Often they will learn more than people that are already employed full-time in industry. So an architectural firm, they're great architects, and they have all their CAD systems and their BIMs and all the things but they might not really know how to author virtual reality or use an Unreal Engine game engine, but our students do. And so a lot of times our students will be hired as co-ops or into full-time jobs on graduation, and end up teaching their employers how to do these things because they learned how to do all these technologies that those employers hadn't had the time to dig into yet. So yeah, it's pretty good.
It's kind of like being an artist, no? To work in this field, it's like a good way to get inspiration of like even if you, let's say, work in VR, and you get all these ideas, and you could be going out and doing all kinds of other jobs, and like a different person, right? even if you're not making VR stuff day to day after, because maybe it opens your mind to all kinds of different ways of doing things, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, one of my mentors, Alex Lindsay, who runs the office hours sessions, basically equated it to artisans. So you think back into the Renaissance, and if you want a mural painted on your ceiling or on your wall, you're hiring an artisan, and there's definitely artistic aesthetics at play. You have to understand design and anatomy and composition and all storytelling, all these artistic nuances. But at the same time, you need to have a little bit of a scientific bent and understand how colors and paints interact with plaster, interact with structure, interact with stone, and how to build something with structural integrity and such. And so it's definitely a blend of artistic as well as technological skill sets. And so it definitely requires a special kind of person that is, not intimidated or bored by technical topics, but also very creative and, has that attention to detail, to artistic design, and really how all of this interacts with human perception. It's all about how we connect to one another as humans.
I mean, I think I've been to so many trade shows with people been talking about VR for many years, and I thought it was a good thing when the VR became ARM powered. I do a lot of stuff that's about the ARM chipsets. When it gets really affordable and you get to have a little thing, and and also AR. I do videos about AR companies that have smart glasses and all this stuff, but it's often the question of giants, like Google and Apple or somebody like maybe Facebook. I mean, of course, Facebook is actually kind of like doing more than the other two, but it's up to them to put the billions of dollars on the table and say, let's make it a huge thing that kind of like, because in this Corona time, I would have loved to see VR Zoom calls, It would have been so cool if you could be in a room with a family member who's in the other side of the country or the other side of the world, and like feel like you're in the same room. Like there's all these things that I think are like they're not far. Like maybe one of the students could actually make it real, but still, it's not enough kind of to make it real. You also need to have somebody manufacture a whole bunch of them so everybody can afford them, and they just should be cheap.
Right.
And it makes sense somehow.
And we're getting there. I mean, I think the thing that most people don't realize is that this journey, I mean, if you just look at VR by itself, this has been going on for half a century. The first VR system, is 1969. I mean, that was before I was born.
Was that in a Media Lab?
Actually, I think it was a Department of Defense project, honestly. So it wasn't with Drexel. But the technology itself has been around for a very long time. It has generally, back then it was a multi-million-dollar project. Prices, got down into the, less than $10 million probably over the course of the 70s. And augmented reality was being used, again, by the military for things like the Apache helicopter targeting things. I mean, that's a lot of these technologies are born out of these very high demanding. And again, the advantages, the reason that these technologies were being used was for training and for information transfer, right? So when a pilot gets a heads-up display or a monocle display, they're getting computer information into their eye for their brain to interpret. And it's easier and better for that to be coming in through their field of view as visual information than it is to look down out away, look at a dial or something like that. And so that's really where the origin of all of this was. And the same thing with VR, all of these immersive technologies were used for creating simulators because particularly when you get into, the business of defense and the business of being first responders and safety officers, a mistake is a life and death mistake. And, it's also very, very costly mistake. And, monetarily, the equipment's very expensive. If you crash an airplane, even if you're the only one in the airplane, that was a very, there's the human cost as well as the fiscal cost. So VR, you can crash a plane and you don't die, and you hit reboot and you've got another plane. So these are long proven technologies. The economies of scale for consumer use really came about because the tools needed for effective VR happened to be built into cell phones. So cell phones, are a billions of units product. And when you're creating, a product that's selling at the tune of billions of units, then the cost of making one gets really inexpensive. And so the sensors that detect motion, the cameras, the screen, those are the pieces that enable virtual reality. And so once those got down to a price point that was less than $1,000, well, we can make VR headsets for less than $1,000. And then when you make, purpose-built, bespoke VR headsets, now that, I think currently Oculus, Facebook has one that's like $300, and it's a fully self-contained. You don't need to connect it to a computer. It's full, what we call 6 degrees of freedom. You can move as well as turn your head. And that's where we're at a 50-year evolution. So we still have a ways to go. Absolutely. I think VR, AR, chat is coming. I think Microsoft just a few weeks ago released a vision video. It's about 2 minutes long if you search YouTube for Microsoft Mesh. I think they have a really good vision video showing how they see the direction of this going in. And, there's other technologies that tie into this, such as volumetric video cameras that not only see, individual colors two-dimensionally in pixels, but also perceive depth, because now that's kind of the basis for capturing holograms and things. So all of these things are coming together. It's going to increment year by year, and we're going to see more and more of it.
Yeah, because these, I would say, I'm European, right? But it's American trillion-dollar tech companies, like Microsoft. I would kind of like think, what else would they be doing with all their money? Then I think this is perfect. They need to at least, put $1 or $2 billion into trying to get these amazing, awesome things out there, and maybe your alumni would be part of the teams that actually make that like a mass production thing that changes the world. It's not like you have to wear the VR headset on the street or AR like 24/7. I'm thinking it's more like a thing. You take it out of the pocket. You might wear it in the supermarket. I want to see an augmented supermarket where I can like get recommendation what things I should pick up in the supermarket that may be more healthy or more affordable, or like because it's important to eat different things, but we need support a little bit, and I think there is the potential for all these amazing things. And when these smartphones are shipping billions and billions, it's just one thing I was just wondering right now is this crazy amazing setup. And there's a comment here: the top-down view of your desk is so great, neat work. How do you think there's any chance that this might run off hardware that's kind of like phone? So basically, could it be like a little smart webcam that has a built-in 3D accelerated GPU on an ARM chip that could kind of like render all this stuff? Or what do you think?
I would imagine it could scale to that. I mean, truthfully, Unreal Engine, if I set this up correctly, I could literally package the project for tvOS, iOS, Android. So it is possible with this tool to build for those platforms. Again, as you mentioned, the big limitation is the graphics capabilities, which are not terrible. I mean, they're pretty good. So is it possible? Probably. I haven't tried it yet. That would be great. It would be really, again, some of it is physical, right? I have a camera that's sitting in front of me in the real world, and it's like 5 feet in front of me. So, with a phone, how would I capture myself? I definitely would suggest taking a look at the Microsoft Mesh vision video, because they do show what it might look like for a person to step into the field of view of a volumetric camera and be seen by another person as a hologram. So the tools are coming. Yes, in theory, and all of this could run on a cell phone sized device. I think that there's a lot of integration still to be done. One of the big things that we're waiting for in terms of enabling all of this is even just like a full 5G networks, full deployment and common accessibility to 5G cellular networks, so that the bandwidth of that device's communications can support this. I'm running multiple, video feeds here over a network, but everything is on a gigabit Ethernet. I probably couldn't run with this kind of performance over even my home Wi-Fi, let alone over a 3G cell phone connection. So there's some incremental technologies. In the meantime, at the industrial level, this stuff is already being used this way, right? So there are already wearables of, augmented reality headsets or, screens that come out kind of like a little microphone in front of someone. And again, anywhere that the cost of equipment or the importance of safety when you've got, injury, life and death involved with a particular job, the more information, the more safety checks that you can do, the more practice you can do, the safer everyone is and the more successful actual operations are.
Would you mind tweaking a little bit your camera, like your camera view and moving the screen, for example, a little bit closer to you, or some different things you might want to do? Like I'm looking at your webcam view, right? Yeah.
Okay. So if I do the webcam view, I can grab this camera. And so, yeah, I have this camera currently programmed to always look at me. So wherever I move it in the scene, it'll always look at me. So, that's possible. But I could release that lock and then I could move up and show the whole room. And now it's not locked onto me like a target tracker. And I could relock it and move around. So yeah, again, all of this is happening live in real time.
Do you think it would help if somehow there was a 3D camera on you that could kind of like capture around you a little bit?
Those technologies do exist. That's called volumetric capture, definitely, because as I go around to the side here, you could start to see that I'm flat a little bit, and eventually I completely disappear. I've never been so thin in my entire life. I'm wafer thin. So there are volumetric cameras that allow for that. Another thing that is possible is that that's routine part of virtual production is to have a physical camera that has a spatial tracker on it. In fact, I have a RealSense camera here. Whoops, I should just get a close up here. So this little device is from Intel. It's a RealSense camera. It's like $200, and it is able to track its own position because it's got stereoscopic cameras as well as an inertial sensor. And so if I mount this to a physical camera, then I can move that physical camera through space. And that physical movement could then be translated to the movement of the virtual camera. And so the real world is completely connected to the virtual world. And it would actually look more volumetric without the need for additional cameras, so that as the physical camera moved around me, this virtual one would follow. And so this is a core aspect of virtual production, particularly in the entertainment industry. And that's what enables things like Fox Sports has a show that they make for NASCAR. It's called Race Hub. It's completely filmed on a green screen stage, but they use Unreal Engine to fill out that stage with a full environment, and they'll have a race car appear in the middle of the stage, and they can explode that car out down to each individual bolt. So they can explain in really high fidelity detail, exactly how each part of the car works and how that factored into a particular race. And also in production of shows like The Mandalorian, a lot of the shots are produced by having these large LED wall projection screens behind the talent, so that instead of a green screen reflecting off of this chrome armor, the armor is actually reflecting the environment from the actual scene. So the Unreal Engine scene is projected onto those walls or displayed on those walls, and then and that's used. So yeah, all of these technologies work together. And for those types of scenarios, like the Fox Sports, they're using a camera tracking technology. The motion capture stages that we have here, the Vicon Vantage and the OptiTrack, are similar to what's used for things like Mandalorian.
Could you, like, just as an example, just put the camera you have right now, put like 50 centimeters or a meter back, like virtually, just so we can see how that looks.
So I just have to click on that camera and
nice. Like and a little bit higher.
Sure.
Awesome. It's so cool to have all these options there. I just wish my little video chatting solution had you in 1080p.
Yeah, sorry about that. One of the other things that this does fully simulate is the optics, right? So this camera is set, with what's considered a wide aperture, right? So in photography, if you have a wide aperture, it lets light in, but it also means that the focusing of the glass components of the lens is really important. So with a wide aperture, it's set to focus on me, and then things that are behind me are a little bit out of focus. And I do that deliberately because, my physical camera might be a little bit out of focus. And it does have like a cinematic look to it. But if I close that aperture, the background behind me gets sharper. And so that's just you would experience. I could set this to f22, for example. Everything behind me should be really, really sharp. And if I go back to my f1.5, it'll blur that background. So it simulates all those things, all those camera things.
That's so awesome. So all your students in your class right now, they know how to do this? You chat with them every day like this?
I chat with them every day like this. Every day, that we're in session, I'm teaching courses in virtual production, and it's interesting. Some of them are not even entertainment industry. So the course I taught this past quarter, and there's another one I'm teaching 2 next quarter. But there's one that's focused on retail, using virtual production in retail. How do you take the design, the merchandising, the brand story of a retail operation and leverage immersive media virtual production for that? Like what could you do what could you do to the home shopping experience if this was the technology that someone could use to shop with? Or what could you do to make a location-based, a brick-and-mortar store into a destination experience through the use of virtual production? So this is what I teach, and I teach it under a lot of different settings. Yeah. My
sister was my camera is out of juice. I'll flip the battery. My sister was a graphic designer on the IKEA catalog for 3 years, and she actually told me that a bunch of the furniture is just 3D, but it's so realistic. And I'm thinking it'd be so awesome if people could jump into a virtual IKEA, especially in this strange time, and kind of get a feeling what bed they want, what sofa they want, and maybe put on a headset. I don't even know. They might have something, but probably not, right? As advanced as one would want them to have.
In theory, there would be little to no obstacle for them to bring their furniture into something like Unreal Engine. I have never worked with IKEA other than going and buying, home tabletops and things like that from them. But my understanding is that the vast majority of what's shown in the catalog is actually computer rendered, so that, artists took the CAD files of the actual furniture designs into a rendering tool and create those scenes in the computer. So since those things exist in the computer as models, there would, as long as they could be exported in the right file format, they could be brought into Unreal Engine and would support augmented reality and virtual reality experiences, immersive experiences. I seem to remember vaguely that there might be a AR app, maybe, for Android or iOS that allows you to kind of preview, you could hold your camera and put furniture in place in the room in front of you.
Yeah. They have some kind of thing where you can just check it on the phone and stuff. But
Mhm.
sorry, I got this weird thing going on with my
Oh, that's
focus.
interesting.
Yeah, is what's called yeah. But I mean, there's so much potential out there, and I would think that this Corona time should just put everything on the next level. And have you seen any YouTubers? You know, all these YouTubers who do live streams and shows and stuff do this cool. Or you're like only at your university and yourself and your students know this trick yet.
No, I mean, there's quite a few people that understand these technologies and are putting them to use. There is, I mean, there's a whole category of esports streaming, e-casting, right? So that since competitive video games have become a spectator sport, that there are folks that are, at home calling the game, doing the play-by-plays, and they'll use tools like this to create virtual settings for themselves. There's actually a really famous, internet famous person who is, I think her digital persona is called Code Miko. And the human person who operates the digital persona she goes by the name of the technician. And there was a really great article written up about this really accomplished technical artist. My understanding is all I know of her is from the articles, but that during COVID that she was someone who had been working at a video game company and was downsized basically as a part of COVID. And so she purchased a motion capture suit, and she streams on Twitch as a digital character, Code Miko. And she's very popular because her stream, she is 100% digital. Her character is digital. The room she's in is digital. And she'll interview real world Twitch and YouTube personalities. And, her claim to fame is that, if you buy points with her, you could get, you could customize the shirt that she's wearing, or I think one of her claims to fame is that you could actually kill her if you pay for the right, enough, you could kill her in the middle of her interview. But she's really pushing this technology, and she's doing it all from home. So she's wearing a motion capture suit. She's using a cell phone facing her face to capture her facial movements, and those are translated onto the digital character. And so she has an entire, Twitch stream of shows based around that character. And, so now granted, I mean, she was a coder, she was I believe in the game industry before this. So all of that knowledge she had. So she's a very accomplished artist and coder. Yes, absolutely. The students that are in our programs learn these technologies, and I expect to see more and more people using them soon. And that's part of, again, the idea behind this, Office Hours Labs in April is to really help people get over that initial learning curve, because I think there's a lot of benefits for folks that we're able to leverage this to be able to, use this for Zoom or their internet streaming. So you should participate, and so that all of your streams come May are in your own virtual environment, and so then you can use that going forward. Oh, your microphone's muted. I see you. I see you.
Yeah, sorry. I keep forgetting to unmute myself. I'm very much like an ARM-powered fanboy, so I hope all this stuff can run on this M1 MacBook Air, like the whole thing. That'd be awesome if somehow I could figure out how to do that.
That might be the bottom end of what could run it, but there are performance tuning. Try
Maybe.
it out. Let's see.
I'll
Let me
need
know
to
how
try.
It goes. Well, let's
Otherwise, I'll tweet Tim Sweeney and ask him to update something. Or what's it called, right? Go. I'm joking a little bit, yep. But I can't imagine how awesome the Zoom calls must be in your classes. Like everybody is a 3D character or joining in like you're at your studio. No, maybe I'm just joking.
No,
a little bit, but it would be awesome if it was.
Actually, I think the power is in the fact that everyone else on the Zoom call does not need any of this special knowledge or technology, right? So you and everyone on the stream kind of get to see this environment, experience it. without needing any kind of special technology whatsoever. You're not using a VR headset. So my students, they join a Zoom meeting with me just like they join any other Zoom meeting. They all look just like they normally do. But my hope is that when they're in my class, that they're getting a little bit of a different experience than, just seeing me sitting in front of a bookcase. And, I think one of the things that we lost in the progression of this pandemic is our access to our sense of place, right? So our pre-COVID, we had auditoriums and gymnasiums and lecture halls and classrooms and labs and studios that we all worked at together. And these places were purpose-built. A lecture hall is purpose-built for a professor to perform and for the students to absorb and learn. And we lost access to that. And so then every class looked like every other class. Every class for the student was in whatever room they were sitting in, whether it was their bedroom or their dining room or kitchen, living room. Every class looked like it was the same, and it was in the same room. And every teacher that was presenting to them is presenting from their home. So I was really hoping to be able to use the technologies, like practice what I teach, and give a different experience when we were connecting in these classes. And we also translated that to events. Every year we do a large screening for our animation projects, and we usually have a theater, and we screen the shows, and the students get to present. And in June of 2020, we couldn't do a physical event. So, in the time between when things started shutting down for us, it was March of 2020. Really, in about 8 weeks, put together a virtual awards show animation festival stage, and we actually conducted the entire animation festival over YouTube on a virtual stage. And so the students got to have a special experience, got to be on stage, so to speak, through a Zoom meeting. And so that was a lot of fun. So there's a lot of value to these tools.
So is it right now on YouTube?
Yeah, I think if you were to search Drexel Animation Festival 2020, and it would come up. And it starts like, I don't know, 11. It's like, nice. I forget how.
Yeah, I see it there.
It's pretty deep in. It's pretty deep into the video before it actually starts.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a minute or so, hour. It's like.
So
starts at 11 minutes in. Yeah.
The students do these 3D animations.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. So you could see last year's capstone senior animation projects there. There was a visual effects project, and and so we put together this stage, and the students were able to have a really special event without the need to bring everybody into one room, which we couldn't do.
Nice. That's awesome. There's so much demand for this kind of stuff, right? The whole world wants your students, right?
That's my hope. Yeah.
It's just the limit is the imagination and the billions from the big companies when it's about something that has to be mass market. But otherwise, there's so much 3D content, 3D animations. I don't know if they get more people watching the Pixar movies than the regular movies, but at least video games is much bigger than Hollywood.
Right. I mean,
as I saw in billions in money.
They're in billions. Yeah. And the whole Hollywood model is in flux right now. I mean, the game revenue model, didn't change at all. In fact, with the pandemic was probably good for the game industry because more people are at home. People were like, all right, I guess I'll buy a good game system and buy more games. I know my daughter is on Fortnite pretty much every day, and I need more V-Bucks. But, Hollywood, the whole model of targeting in-place theaters with large audiences, has to be transformed, and they're working their way through that. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see how things develop.
Nice. So Thanks a lot. Thanks for showing your awesome setup.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
I hope you inspire with your. I'll link to the open hours down there. It's really amazing that, as far as I understand, Alex Lindsay. I was watching a little bit on a Twitch MacBook show once in a while, but then I heard that the open hours it kind of started a year ago, and I guess it's every single day, kind of like 6 in the morning on the Pacific time or something like that, or nine in the morning. Yeah, I guess not 6.
So, but for me, well, no, it's for me on the East Coast, New York time. It, the doors open at 9 a.m. So yes, on Pacific Coast, it's 6 a.m. And there's basically the way Alex runs it is if you are interested in being on the panel, you need to be there by before 6:40, because that's when we do mic checks and video checks and things like that. And then the actual official show starts 10 a.m. East Coast time, 7 a.m. Pacific, and that's where it's Q&A. I mean, it's this panel group of different experts from all over the world,
and it's live streamed on YouTube.
It's live streamed on YouTube. It's open. There's a registration link in the Office Hours YouTube stream. You could connect to it via Zoom. One of the things that Alex really has mastered is he has a custom built system that handles the Q&A, so that rather than just flying by questions in a chat stream, once a question is entered into this Q&A system,
Mukana, I think they call it, right?
Yeah, they call it Mukana, and it allows audience members to upvote questions in real time, so that questions that the audience is interested in get voted up. And then the folks that are on the panel see that, oh, well, there's a lot of audience members that would like to know about this question, so let's answer that one. And so that goes on every single day. And then usually there'll be a focus topic after the Q&A session. And so that might be bringing in a targeted expert on a particular subject, a software solution, or even a technique. I mean, they delve into photography, into audio, streaming, the logistics of doing a video production. How do we get everything on an airplane? How do we get everything, loaded in and loaded out? How do you work with clients? How do you handle communications? These are just some of the topics that have been explored. And so, it's a really great dynamic group.
All right, that's awesome. So thanks a lot for showing off. And so I'll put the link to the open hours right down there, and it'll be recorded, I guess. Isn't it? It's going to be the second hour of each of those Saturdays.
So those Saturdays, the Unreal Engine virtual production is going to be aimed at 1 p.m. Eastern time. It'll be 10 a.m. Pacific time. That's when those sessions will start. And they'll run like an hour and a half, 2 hours each one of those Saturdays.
Nice. And so people can join those, or they can they can try to become a student at your university, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, if anyone knows folks that are in high school that they think, these kids need to learn this stuff, they should definitely be looking into Drexel University and our immersive media program. And I mean, a lot of people are interested in the game design program or the animation visual effects. I mean, the university is a large research university, but I'm in the Westphal College of Media, Art, and Design. And so we really focus on, we're this kind of wildly creative design community. And then we interface with the rest of the research university. So I love getting to go to the Natural History Museum, or working with the engineering college, or we have a nursing college, healthcare. So it's a lot of fun. It's a great place to be.
It'd be nice if your setup could run off a PlayStation, because you have all these college guys. They might be let's say addicted to playing video games, and then maybe somebody could suggest and say, "Hey, why don't you go and take your passion and actually do it? Like make these games and make and run this thing off a PlayStation or an Xbox."
I think
figure out how to do that.
That's definitely a thought that occurred to me, that it would be great to, Unreal Engine, you can build for PlayStation, you can build for Xbox. So wouldn't it be great if this was built into a device like that. So it's like a home appliance, and you could have a camera over your TV and, maybe a piece of green screen behind you, and be able to do all of this with your game controller, in your living room. Technologically, it should be doable. I don't know what the hurdles are to get there.
Awesome. All right. Thanks a lot. So I hope this video brings a couple or 3 people over to or maybe more to join. But there's maybe a limit, I guess, how many join with the camera, but you don't have to join with the camera. You can join in the background and just listen, right? People can do that if they
Absolutely.
want.
Mm-hmm.
Or they can just watch it on YouTube on demand forever.
Yeah. It's definitely best to connect via Zoom and Mukana, because then you can ask questions. And the power of these lab sessions is the fact that for this brief little bit of time, you're sitting in a space with other people who are learning all at once. And so other people might ask questions that you might not have thought of, or you might think of a question that other people haven't thought of. And it's incredibly useful. There's sessions running right now. Office Hours are working on building out Raspberry Pi projects. And so everyone's just, working on Raspberry Pis together. And when someone says, like, I can't get this thing to fit, someone else says, oh, you need to turn it around this way. And the person's there. Like, that might have been another 5-10 minutes worth of internet searching to figure out that, oh, I just need to turn it this way. But someone else just spotted it. Really looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a really unique opportunity.
Yeah, I was trying to say that actually the open hours is an interesting concept. As far as I understand, Alex Lindsley has been like running the whole, like when President Obama was on the Google Hangouts and all these kind of things, like as far as I understand, I'm not sure if it's exactly that project, but a whole bunch of live streaming things over the past decade. And for some reason, they thought, hey, let's just share all our knowledge. And there's all these great, like amazing experts on the show, like from around the world, and sharing their expertise in how to live stream, how to connect all these things. And it's every single day forever. 2 hours. It's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Alex has been doing this for a long time. I mean, I met him before, high bandwidth internet was a common thing at home. Today, we've got broadband coming in via cable or even fiber optic to the house. And when I remember that when I first met him, I was just getting into visual effects for feature films. And he was talking about, in a few years, this is coming. There's going to be, everyone's home's going to have broadband internet. There's, companies are going to have fiber optic that goes right to the house. And when that happens, anyone has access to these tools. He saw, I was lucky in that I was getting into the film industry at a time that it was actually moving away from film. And so if I was learning digital tools, I could learn every bit as much about those digital tools as someone who had been in the industry for 2 decades, because it was new to everybody. And so it worked out really well for me to get in, and then to have the insights that Alex was sharing about, this broadband internet thing means that you could work on films and you could stay in Philadelphia. It's like, I want to do that. That sounds good. And that's exactly where things have moved. And now, there's film production being done all over the world, and a single film will be worked on in India and up and down the Pacific coastlines, as well as, in Canada and the US and England. One film will be a global enterprise. And, he saw the value of this as not only a production tool for entertainment, but also just as a communication tool and as a way of being able to empower communities that were struggling. So, throughout Africa, for example, there are nations who have tremendous human capital, skilled artisans, incredibly smart folks, where the only natural resource they needed was internet, and that was coming, and that is coming, and that is there today. Now that's there. And so,
I heard that Nigeria is producing more movies than Hollywood, and they're putting all on YouTube.
Yeah, yeah, and so there are, there are operations there that, and it's not like it's competitive with the Hollywood operations. It's just like, okay, now they can produce local content and be part of the global conversation. And so he's always been educationally bent. That's, I was fortunate enough to meet him when I was, relatively new to the industry. And so I was able to learn a lot from him. He's always been open, because the other thing about these industries is that one of the constraining factors often is having enough skilled people. So, being able to share that information and get more and more people involved and more people versed in the tool set just gives more and more headroom for growth of the industry as a whole.
There's just one comment, if you don't mind. Rory is writing, WebGL, WebVR is making steady progress too. Like, I think right now we're using WebRTC to do this video chat, and it's all web browser based, and I'm super amazed by these. It's like StreamYard, this is Melon and it's really impressive what's possible to be done. But maybe more and more stuff is going to happen in the web browser and become this industry standard. And it'd be awesome if we could with some kind of green screen, or maybe look like we're sitting next to each other instead of having these these boxes where it's like bringing people together. And I used to go to up to 15 trade shows in a year around the world, and they're all virtual only, and I think it's been not really working out for them. Let's say it honestly, they're not really like the ones that I usually attend, like CES, Mobile World Congress, IFA, the Embedded World, all these kind of trade shows. They are supposedly trying to do online virtual events, but they're totally missing the boat. They're missing the I don't know, I don't know what they're waiting for. But somebody needs to go and teach them what to do. And I think I'm disconnected. Oh, maybe I'm still here.
I can
somebody
hear you.
virtual events. There, this right there. Let's do it the right way.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, one of the big values of working with something like Unreal Engine is that it can deploy. And once you've built something in once you've built something once, you can use it over and over again different ways, right? So we were talking about deploying on a PlayStation or Xbox or Mac or PC. One of the modes of deployment is via WebGL. And we've actually, for a lot of the work that we've been doing with our engineering college has been to create virtual learning environments for the engineering school. And so we've been able to build experiences in Unreal Engine and then deploy those as web pages so that students can just open in a browser and look at a lab setup. Full disclosure, we actually exported what we built in Unreal over to Unity and then used Unity to deploy over WebGL. But all of these tool sets work together, and once we built something one time, we can use it in a lot of different modes. Yeah, I think definitely the trade show conference industry is trying to find their way. I mean, obviously, this has been an industry that's well entrenched for 100 years. There have been over 100 years. There have been conventions going on that were always about traveling to one location and being all together and talking to one another in a room. Today, if you have plural tens of thousands of people going to a conference, that would involve all the jet fuel of all those tens of thousands of people to get to one city being burned in the atmosphere. And so there's already a little bit of a motivation to move away from that. And then when you get something like a pandemic that says, yeah, we can't put that many people in one room at the same time. There's this technology that's here, but I think a lot of the initial instinctive reaction is to, well, we could recreate what it looked like to be in the conference hall digitally. And that really doesn't work. You need to take a blend of what was the real environment like, and then what can we do digitally that goes beyond that. So when I'm looking at building teaching and learning environments through virtual production, it's not simply how do I recreate what we did in person. It's more about how can I create something that's better than we did in person. And so it's very hard to take a large, established, centuries old industry and say, oh, in the next year you need to do that completely differently. So they're working their way through it, and I'm sure there are a lot of great ideas out there. There's one solution that I came across just while I was working on the idea of getting Unreal Live Video working on a Mac, but I know nothing about this company beyond I've landed on their website, and it's called Agora.io. But they offer basically kind of a Zoom-like video audio communication service, but as an SDK. So, their servers facilitate the video audio transfer, but they have a plugin for Unreal Engine, right? So we could conduct this very much like you described, where if you had your camera in a green screen and I have my camera in a green screen, both those videos could go into an Unreal Engine environment, and we could be keyed out, and we could look like we're sitting at two desks across from one another. So again, other than landing on their website, I don't know anything about this company. That's the full disclosure, but I'm really intrigued by it. And it's definitely one of those things that I have on my list. Like, oh, I need to look into this.
I think the tools are here, right? And the cameras are here, the computers are there, the PlayStations, the phones. But sometimes the killer app is missing. And maybe it's like a little bit like the phones were there for a decade, and suddenly Uber arrived and was like, oh my God, this is awesome. And Airbnb arrived, and just like, but maybe the killer apps just need to be made. And even though I'm really looking forward to go back to real trade shows, of course, and the society opening, I do think the internet needs to be like a central piece of networking. I mean, it is, of course, but like the events could be hybrid, or like a bunch of other stuff that are potentially just about to be there, or maybe they are there, but I just don't know.
It's going to take some time. I mean, it doesn't get built in a day, and we're still trying to get folks skilled up in the tools of the building part. So it's definitely going to be a really interesting, upcoming decade of progress.
All right. So thanks a lot for doing a feature film on my YouTube channel. It's like 1 hour and 26 minutes.
Thanks for having me.
That's
this was
awesome.
A lot of fun, and you had great questions. Thanks for having me.
Thanks a lot. And thanks everybody for watching, and everybody can go check out how to do this. So everybody can upgrade and look awesome on the interwebs, look awesome on their YouTubes.
Sounds like
fun.
All right.
Thanks a lot.
All right. Thanks for having me.